So, hi everyone. Glad that you could join me today. Hopefully, I've got everything turned down. Now I do. So, this is what we are going to be using today. Hi, Tanya, for the set of 6 cards we're going to be making. And it's the Echo Park Salutations #1. And when I saw this line, I said to Tammy, oh my goodness, I want this. This is cards all over. Cards, cards, and more cards. And so that's what we're going to be doing with this. And my plan is to kind of do a couple of sets of cards with this particular paper line. And if you recall, believe it or not, it's like 3 weeks ago now, I did this box. And this box is to hold these cards and other cards that we're going to be making. And it's got a set of dividers inside, so it makes it nice. You can stand the cards up. It is for A2 cards, so keeping that in mind when you're making your cards. If you make a bigger card, you'd have to adjust the measurements of this box. And this is in the units, I think is what it's called. And if you can't find it there, it is on my YouTube channel, which is All Things Paper by Bonnie, and you can find it there. And I'll try to remember to put a link in the bottom of the YouTube video once it goes live, or once it's processed, or whatever it is they call it. So there's where the cards are going to go when we're finished. And this is what we're using. So I used the 12 by 12 collection. I was given the ephemera for the collection. I have the, hi Myrna, so glad you could join us. Salutations #1. Thanks, Tanya. It's called groups. That's where it is. Oh, good. I'm so glad, Myrna. We were on a little late last night in the Zoom group, but it's good. It's good. I got to sleep in a little bit this morning, so it's good. So I'm going to set this aside. I also have, Tammy sent me 2 of the stamp sets, and I know she is sending me the thank you dies. So that's one of the reasons I want to wait for the second set of cards, is to incorporate those dies. But today we're going to use a couple of the stamps, maybe in ways that you've never thought of using the stamps before. But that's where I'm headed today. Hopefully we don't stay on too long. Hopefully I don't bore you. That's not my intent. So let me move this stuff out of the way. And then just a quick overview. These are the cards. Hopefully I can get them all in this shot. Gotta keep looking that way. The cards I'm making today may not look exactly, they may not have the same sentiment or that type of thing. It's just going to depend. Hi, Patty. Glad you could join us. It's just going to depend on when I was making my second set of these cards, what I had left. I also did add this little bit of sequence to this shaker card. Yes, it's a little shaker card. So it's a little, it's a frame that's in the ephemera pack. And this is a 2 by 2. So if I do this, then you can see that this is a 2 by 2 cut apart. And then I just had some sequence in my stash, and I decided that's what was going to go inside it. So let's put these aside. Let's get started. Hopefully I picked them up in the right order, so that, because I've got numbers on the back of them, so I don't get myself lost, of course. This is 2 and 3. Give me a second here. 4, 5, and 6. So we don't get lost on our mission today. So this is the first card we're going to create. And I'm going to start with that thanks first, because I wanted to get into the fact that, you know, we don't always just have to use ink when we want to put the sentiment down someplace. Some of you may know about embossing powder. Some of you may never have looked at embossing powder, but that's how I created this. Hello, Diane. I embossed this thanks on some blue paper. So that's what we are going to do here. I just need to get out my little squishy mat I've got. And this is it's harder than the mat I was showing last night, which I use for making flowers. This McGill mat I've got, it's really squishy, where this mat is designed specifically for stamping. And I don't know if Tammy could get this in the store. I'll have to talk to her about that, because I don't even remember now where I got this from. I just know it came as a huge piece and I cut it down. So here's what we are going to do. I tried to be organized today. I just had some embossing powder in my stash, so that's what I'm using today. And I need my stamp set, knowing me by the time we're done. And I'm going to use this thanks stamp. Just get it off. And when you're embossing, things to remember are, you don't need to keep it perfectly straight on the block unless you're embossing in an area where that's really going to matter. Because I'm going to soft cut around my thanks when I'm all done, I'm not worried how straight this is going on the block today. And I'm going to need, where did it go? To emboss with, I use a Versamark ink. And if any of you are familiar with stamping, Versamark leaves like a watermark, and it's quite tacky. And what it does, it allows us to give the embossing powder something to bond to. So I'm just going to stamp my thanks, really pushing down on it. And I'm going to use a little tool my husband made for me. And hopefully I'm not shaking you guys. It's a piece of wood with a felt on the bottom of it and a doorknob handle. And you can, if Google Chucky tool, and you'll see what the purpose of this is. It's just to give even pressure. And this is the redneck version of it, because my husband can be a bit of a redneck. And I said, this is what I need. And so this is what he created for me. It works quite well, actually. So now I just want to lift this off. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see. Let's see. It's going to be hard to see in this light, but it does say thanks. I always try to keep a piece of paper laying around for the purposes of what we're going to do next. So embossing powder can be messy. It can get everywhere. It's kind of a little like glitter. It can be your best friend, but it also can be your worst enemy. And all I'm doing is I'm just making sure I get good coverage. Just going to put this aside so I can do what I need to do. I'm going to turn this over. I'm just flicking off any extra. Now, I think I've taken too much off, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Now, you can take an anti-static bag and cover your paper with that first. I didn't, because I kind of forgot. I'm just taking off any little bits of embossing powder that I don't want to interfere. And I'm just blowing them away. Still one there. It's a little time consuming, but the effect is worth it. So I just want to pour this back in my container. Hello, Julianne. Hopefully I've said your name correctly. I'm terrible with names, so I apologize in advance for that little oops. So let's get the lid on this. And we've really just started, so you haven't missed anything. And I'm going to get my heat tool. Sorry if I made everybody shake there. And I've had this embossing tool forever. I just keep it plugged in. It's always handy. It's just at my arm's reach here so that I can get to it. And I turn it on. And I'm sure lots of you have embossed before. And all I'm going to do is I'm heating up the embossing powder. And you know you've heated it up when it starts to get shiny. And hopefully you get to see that transformation. And you want to make sure you get good coverage. So I just kind of move it, making sure you don't want to burn it, because that's not a good thing. Don't touch it when it's hot. Just throw that back up. And that's how quickly you've got it embossed. And I do see I missed a few little black little pieces, but you know what? I'm going to be okay with this because it's a card. It's supposed to have some little glitches or little imperfections in it. So when I said soft cut, I mean exactly that. All I am going to do is I'm just going to come in with my scissors and I am just going to go around it. I am sorry, my husband has gone away and he's calling me, so I just have to mute you guys for a second so I can talk to him. I am so sorry about that. He was just letting me know that he got to where he was going, and I'll feel much better now because I know that. There is no way I would probably have been able to continue on because I would have been worried about, did he get to where he needed to be today? And he did. So I apologize for that. So I'm literally just cutting around the word. I can touch it now because it's not hot anymore. And it's just however I think I want it to look. And remember, the scissors are moving, not so much the paper. Or pardon me, the paper's moving, not so much the scissors. And it's that simple. And there we have thanks. So that's one of the pieces. Hi, Lillian. Hi, Sandy. No, I shouldn't have apologized, Myrna. It's just to make sure he got to where he needed to be. And he did, which is awesome. He's going to have a great time. He's gone fishing for 10 days. So there's our sentiment that's going to go on the front of our card. And now I'm going to get out the pieces we need. Put some things away. And I'll try to give you some measurements. So as I said before, we're working with A2 cards. So my bottom layer of pattern paper is 4 by 5 1/4. My, pardon me, not pattern paper, cardstock. My pattern paper that's going to go on top of that cardstock is 3 3/4 by 5. And then my other pieces So just keep in mind, hi Donna, that all of my pattern paper, sorry, all of my cardstock is 1/4 of an inch bigger than my pattern paper. So this little piece of pattern paper is 1 3/4 by 4 1/4, and I did get the 6x6 paper pad. So this comes out of the 6x6 paper pad. So that would make my layering background piece 2 by 4 1/2. And then the other little pieces I have, so my other piece of pattern paper, which is actually this comes from the 12 by 12, is 2 1/2 by 3. And of course, its mat is going to be 2 3/4 by 3 1/4. So I think you guys get the idea where I'm going with this. My last little piece of pattern paper is 1/2 inch by 3 3/4. And it also came from the 6x6 paper pad. And of course, this is just 1/4 of an inch bigger. So we're going to ink some edges because this is a real process that we're going to do today. So if it goes on too long, come back and watch it later, because I know that in some parts of the world right now, it's probably a beautiful sunny day. We had some sun here, but it's now kind of overcast. So don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we'll get some rain. We could use the rain because it's quite dry here. Our snow has been gone for over a month now. And so it's just making things, they're drying out, and we get enough forest fires. Hi, Doris. Hi, Mary. You know what, Mary? It's just fine because it stays recorded. It's really just a process video of showing you how I create my cards, giving us a few new tips, hopefully, or maybe ideas that you may have used in the past, but sometimes we forget that we've got some of this stuff. So I always like to layer my pattern paper on my cardstock before I start assembling. I'm just using the art glitter glue. And hopefully my pin is, or my glitter is not, or my art glitter glue is not going to get plugged. So I just try to center this. Something like so. And then I'm going to give it a burnish, of course. Get the glue taken care of. And I will wash that stamp when I'm done, but I don't really worry too much when it's the Versamark, because it's just going to make other inks stick better to that stamp when I use it with a colored ink. So now I'm just doing the small pieces. Like so. And hopefully we'll have time, because I kind of promised this to some of the ladies that were on Zoom last night. We got talking about making flowers. And I said I'd show you guys today how I make my flowers. And I do use flowers on one of the cards. And I'll try to make sure we get some time. Hi, Charisse. How are you today? And Diane, if I didn't say hello, hello. Yes, we will do some flower, at least one flower. Maybe when we get down to one of the simpler cards, I won't actually make it. I'll just sort of give you the sizes of everything. And the last piece, I'm not going to mount these bases to an actual card because that'll just take up time. Well, maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see how things go. So just centering it. And I want to make sure that I got side to side. So this pattern paper is exactly the same width as the piece of cardstock. Because if you look at the card, it lays right here underneath the thanks. And if I got any overhang, I'm just going to take my scissors, give a little snip. So put a little ink on that white edge. And that's the nice thing about the dark cardstock. You don't see those things. Now, going to get out my big rolls. And Tammy does sell this in the store. It's Crafty Foam tape. It's 108 feet. So if you're like me and you like to pop things up, you need the big rolls. And then I bought this one, which is a little bit thicker. I just bought this off of Amazon. It's a 3M tape. And because I do a lot of popping up, I need it to have a big roll. Because those small bits, they cost a lot of money. And I'd rather put my dollars to something like paper. All right, so let's start building this card. So the first layer, I didn't pop up at all. I kind of brought it in about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. My brushes, Tanya, they're just a blending brush. Yeah, they're just a blending brush. I like them better than the foamy pads because I find those just fall apart. And I just prefer this brush to some of the other things. I've had them a long time. So let's get some glue on the back of this piece. And remember, some of the building of a card is just where things look nice to you or where you're happy with things. So I'm moving it a little bit up to the top. Maybe it's about 3/4 of an inch from the top. I'm probably in about 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to burnish it. And now I'm going to put some tape on the back of this piece. And of course, you don't have to pop anything up. You could keep everything flat because sometimes for postage, flat is best. It just kind of depends on what you're creating. The top. And I know some people are going to say, but you look like you're using more. And I might be. But I use a lot of pop dots when I'm creating. So I believe the roll is a better investment for me. So here's my second piece. And it's going to the left, kind of about that same distance away as I did on the right, but it's popped up. Get rid of the backing. And I always look at the paper and go, okay, which orientation is it? So it's top to bottom, side to side, about like that. And this, I don't remember if this is a card sketch I happened to see or if I was just playing with paper one day and went, oh, I like this layout. You know what, Myrna? They're awesome brushes. I love them. So I'm just putting some, so I'm using the thicker adhesive here, or the pop dots here. Keeping in mind that when I'm laying this piece down, okay, what I'm trying to do is I will glue it to this popped up piece. I just want to support it on either side. So I just need a little piece for over here. And you know what? If you don't have pop dots, I have seen people take scrap pieces of cardstock and pop their elements up with that. So I'm going to lay this down right about there. So I'm going to give it a little bit of glue here, where it's going to adhere to this piece that was previously popped up. Take the backing off. And where I think I'm happy, yeah, I think I'm going to like it there. And something like that. And then all I'm going to do with my thanks is I'm going to pop it up sort of on an angle. And I'm just going to take a wee look. Yes, I used my thinner tape. Yes, Sandy, I do too. It just kind of depends on the mood I'm in. So I'm actually going to put my tape onto that center little 3/2 inch piece of pattern paper, because we're also going to need some of the thicker tape for the outside edge, because if you notice, it's kind of curled a little bit. And I could have backed this on some lightweight chipboard. I just chose not to. So I just want to make sure that this isn't sitting up. So I'm probably going to show you what I'm going to do here. We're going to adhere the sentiment in whatever orientation. And this is where my tweezers come in handy. Did you do the G45 tag tutorial? No, I believe, oh, Myrna, I think I did cards. Oh, tag tutorial. You know what? I don't even remember what I created for the Journey to the North Pole. I'm sorry, Myrna. Maybe somebody knows, but right now it's slipping my mind. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I like it. And I kind of liked it right there. Then I'm going to take a piece of this little bit thicker foam. And I'm just going to do this. I'm going to tuck this piece of foam. Just going to make sure I'm not going to see it. And I am. So I'm going to cut it in half. And I cut my foam. It's the Navy Artisan I'm using, Julianne, for my layers. Okay. And you know what? I believe I need 2 pieces to make me happy. Yes. I needed 2 pieces underneath that to make it lay the way I want it to. So, and then what you can do is if you've got some bling, I happen to have these water drops. I've got them in various sizes. I would just put a few water drops down in the corner like I did on this card, just as another little accent. And I put some up here at the top just for, you know, a decorative element on the card. And that is our first card completed. So there was a little tip about embossing and cutting. I know it is hard to tell. It almost looks black on my screen, which I apologize for, but it's probably the lighting today in my craft room. So there's card number 1. So remember, you can take the stamp, use the Versamark, emboss it in whatever color. I could have used whatever color of embossing powder I had, but I thought the black looked striking. Navy blue would have looked beautiful too if I had had navy blue. So there's card 1. So let's move on to card 2. And card 2 is, I like them all, but card 2, I don't know what it was about when I created this. I just fell in love with the elements. So this is a piece of ephemera. I believe it came out of the ephemera pack. Just let me check the back. No, I believe it came off a cut apart sheet. So it might have come off. There are so many cut aparts. Almost every sheet has cut aparts on the back of it. So I believe that came off a cut apart sheet. Let me look in this bag and maybe that'll help. Get my little flowers out. So let's just flip it over for a second and that will tell me. Yes, it did. It came off of one of the cut aparts on the 12 by 12. So again, look at all your pieces. Usually what I do is I take one of each of the cut apart sheets when I'm making cards and I cut them apart right at the very beginning. And then that way, as I'm creating cards and I'm looking for the elements I want for my card, I go back through that bag constantly. Sometimes I'll take a 3 by 3 cut apart and I'll cut that down just to give me the look that I'm looking for. And I am one of these crafters that when I'm down to my decorating, I will do some decorating, then I walk away. Sometimes it just comes to me, but sometimes it's a matter of me walking away, looking at it and going, right, I like it now. So we're just going to adhere our layers like we did the last time. So remember, this is, the pattern paper is 3 3/4 by 5. So the matting layer is 4 by 5 1/4. I didn't round these corners. We could. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to. Tammy did have these in the store, and I know that she is trying to get more of them. But something about they're hard to get. So I'm just going to ink my corners since I rounded them. And I'm just using the 1/8 of an inch. I find I kind of like that as a better round corner on a card. I don't know, it's just softer to me for some reason. And then our little element that says, the elegance is when the inside is as beautiful as the outside. And that came from Coco Chanel. So it's 2 by 3. And like I say, it came off the cut aparts. And then, of course, the layering piece is that 1/4 inch bigger, so 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. So I'm going to glue those 2 elements to their respective pattern paper or cardstock. Don't know why I keep wanting to call it pattern paper when it's actually the cardstock I'm talking about. So I just line it up, centering it. And I normally just eyeball this kind of thing. I know, for those of you that know me well, where you're going right now, she said it again. She's not measuring. You know, I don't, when I'm usually laying things out for a card. And now the backing. Is there anybody working with me, or are you just watching? Because I know it's hard when it's cards because you've got to make the choice of which paper. And this is, this came off the 6 by 6 paper pad. This piece of pattern paper. So I'm trying to tell you where I kind of got things from. So I had a collection kit the patterns or the solids kit, 6x6 paper pad, ephemera, and the stamp sets to work with. And you know what? I could have taken another stamp and stamped again a sentiment, but I'm trying to show you using different pieces of the puzzle. So we're going to put some foam adhesive on the back of this. And I'm using my thicker adhesive. Don't know what this is. I don't know what the width of it is. Let's cut this in half. It doesn't need to be that big. Just be careful you don't cut yourself, because then we'll have blood everywhere, and that won't be a good thing. Excellent idea there, Myrna. Yes, because this is just to give you some ideas. And this paper is just so gorgeous. It would be great for all those summer cards you might want to make. So what I did with this is I centered this sort of in the middle of my layering piece, or my background piece. Like so. And kind of just centered it. And then I used my trusty, my favorite punch of all time that Tammy does have in the store. It's an EK Success punch. It's got 5 different size flowers on it, and they are in the store. It's amazing. It makes the best flowers ever. And that's what I use to create these flowers. So I just don't want it to fall on the floor. And so all I did is I kind of laid out my flowers. We are going to make flowers. I just didn't make them for this card. Something like so. And when I'm happy with it, I will either take pop dots or my foam. So in this case, I'm going to use a piece of foam for that big flower. Yeah, don't leave it there. I'm going to, no, got to cut it a little smaller. Something like this. Pull the backing off of it. And I just kind of put it at the very, not on it. I kind of want the foam dot. Let me get it back on the back. Kind of want it like there's, I think, where I want it. And then my 2 little guys, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the back of them. Sandwich one in here. And the other one in here. Because I like to work in odd numbers when I'm laying down my flowers. And then I just had some bling in my stash, and I put one in each of the center of those flowers. So there's our card number 2. Similar, but I didn't use the same pattern paper on the back layer because I just wanted something a little different for this one. And I love them both. I did put a little bling up in this corner. Could put a little bling up here. And there's card number 2 finished. Now, I want to sidetrack us for a second to talk about flowers. I have this. I have this. And you're going to say, well, this is a lot bigger flower than what you were showing us, Bonnie. Yes, I tend to on my cards want a small flower, but I wanted to use a bigger flower to show you this because I think it's going to be easier for you to see what I'm doing. And I forgot to check before I went on. Tammy was going to put the flower shaping tool into the store. I didn't check, darn. But if it's not there, it will be there shortly. So this is just 3 layers. And I have personally, so that EK Success punch that I just showed you, that Tammy has in the store, It comes in this bigger flower too, but I don't use it as much as I use the little one. So when I was talking to Tammy about the punch, I didn't suggest she bring this one in, but I did suggest the smaller one. But for the application I want to show you guys, it's easier to do it with big flower. So I just punched out a bunch of big flowers, and then I shaped them, and then I layered them. So the point of this is to show you how I shape and layer. So I decide which side I want to be my upside. So that's going to be the side that I'm going to create. So my layers are going to look something like that when I'm done. So I want to turn these guys all over to their backside. And I work with whatever blending, or not blending, shaping ball that I think is going to work for my application. And the first thing I do is I just take it, and I'm putting a lot of pressure. This is the McGill mat. You could use a mouse pad for this. You just want something that's going to give you a lot of squish. And I'm just working in. See, I just keep going around. I never touch the flower with my hand. I only work with this tool. And then I go down the center of it to pull it up like so. And then I go to the next petal, and I just do the same thing. And I go around, and I go around. And when I think I'm happy, then I will, let's turn it so that you can see what I'm doing. I won't need to do it that much with this one. I just pull it up. Now, I'll show you with the bigger tool. And the reason I prefer the smaller one is I just like the look it gives me on the edge of my petal. But you can do it with a bigger one. I'm going to go back to my smaller one because that's the one I prefer. But it depends too on what look you're going for. Yes, you'd have to use several layers, Bobby, of fun foam, I think, you'd have to try it. I've never tried it with the fun foam. So then I just flip it over, and this is how I was taught to make flowers. Now I'm going to tickle the belly. I'm just going to bring out this petal that's kind of got itself underneath, and I just tickle the belly. Okay, and there's one. So let's keep going. I'm going to use my bigger one just because it'll make it go a little faster. So I'm just going around the edges. Definitely you want to use that smaller ball when you're making the smaller flowers. These bigger ones, you know, you can get away with these other balls. I'm just going to keep going. And again, pushing it in. And then I'm turning it over. And I just kind of tap it to get it to lay a little bit. And then I tickle the belly. So, last one. I usually work in layers of 3. Sometimes I'll work in layers of 5, but I tend to go to an odd number. Sometimes I only use 1. Well, 1 is an odd number too, isn't it? You know, depending on what I'm trying to do. If I'm putting a whole bunch of flowers together, especially on an album cover, I might want to just fill in a space with a single flower, or, you know, single layered flower. So let's do that. Turn it over. And we're going to tickle its belly. And then I'm just going to attach this. So I put a little glue on the back, and I offset my petals. So whichever way my petals are going on the bottom flower, I just offset because I want to see that bottom, the bottom petals. And again, I offset my flower like so. And then I give it I really tickle its belly. I want a good definition. And then you can scrunch them. I know Tammy does make flowers, and she does a lot of it with her fingers. So you can, you know, bend the petals. And then what I wanted to show you guys was it's amazing. I'll tell you what happened here. I went to get my little bit of glitter I have, and Tammy does sell some of the fine art glitter in the store. And I had it in this container and it fell on the floor. I'm surprised I didn't end up with glue everywhere. So we're just going to take this piece of paper, get rid of the mat. Won't need that again because we're only making one flower. And I just have some pieces of foam. And literally all I'm doing is I'm putting some art glitter glue on my piece of foam. And this is just what this was an old water toy. I was a preschool teacher, and this was an old water toy. And I had just cut it into pieces. And I'm just sort of dabbing it on the petals. I need more because I don't want a thick amount of glue anyplace. I just want something like that. And then I take my glitter and I'm going to hold on to this with my tweezers because we are going to have glitter everywhere, and everything after this will have glitter attached to it. Now remember, the art glitter glue will dry clear. So any place you're seeing white, you will not see white anymore once it dries. Now this glitter is an iridescent glitter. And there's all kinds of glitter in the store. You just have to explore and see what you'd like in your stash. So I'm just going to get these out of my way, hold it up with the tweezers so you can see. And then I would put something in the center, like with this one, I put in a little pearl that I had left over. Actually, this was left over. Yes, I did make cards for Journey to the North Pole because I used those on those cards. So here is our flower. And if you think it needs to be squished more, take that tool, not that one, this one, and just again, give it a good tickle in the belly. So there's what we've got. So that's basically card making. Yes, you could, Myrna. Yes, you could definitely use this large punch with the smaller punch. But on a card, I just think that this big punch is a little much. But that's my thoughts on it. If you would like that look on your card, go for it. I'd love to see it on a card. You never know. It could be on one of these cards before I'm done here today. I could go completely rogue on myself. So I'm just going to put that back over there. So I'll leave those flowers up there. You never know. We might decide that that's where we're going to head. All right. So card number 3 is that shaker card. And I just want to get my pieces out for that. And my shaker element for this card, yes, on an album, most definitely. Most definitely. You know where else? Let me get the box back in here. Maybe this is going to go on my box. See, if I didn't have this silver charm there, wouldn't that look nice there? That would look pretty there. Who knows? Maybe I'll put it on another box. All right, so the shaker card. So the shaker card I made using a frame from that ephemera pack. This is a frame from the ephemera pack, and this is a 2x2 cut apart. And I've made this all layering on a piece of the navy artisan cardstock. So I only had one frame. So I had to come up with a plan. And like most of us, I have a ton of dies laying around. And I just went into my stash and I happened to have a die that would cut out a thin frame. And that's what I used. You could cut a frame out of paper by hand. Just draw a frame or square and then just use something to make a smaller square and then cut out the two. And there, voila, you've got your frame that you need to make a shaker element. So all I've done is, this is a, it's not, I don't think it's a 2x2. Let me just, no, wrong ruler. Let me get my little one here. It is a 2x2. So this is a 2x2 cut apart. I centered it in on a piece of navy cardstock that measures 2.5 by 2.5. And I did just center it, eyeballing. And then all I did is I dry fitted my frame to the top of it. And I've already added my acrylic sheet, my clear acrylic sheet that I'm going to use. And you can buy, Tammy sells it in the store. And I just cut a piece that was basically, so my frame measured, this frame measured 2 3/8 by 2 3/8. So I cut my piece of acrylic 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. So on this card, I had these sequins in my stash, and I thought that's what I'm going to use. But on the card that I'm making now, Tammy sent me 28 Lilac Lane spring butterflies, and I thought this would look awesome in a shaker card. So hopefully we're not going to have this everywhere, but quite possibly we are. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a pinch of it, thinking, is that enough? Maybe a little more. You could throw some glitter in there, whatever you want it. And I always like to kind of lay my frame on and see, yeah, by the time that starts rolling around, we'll be good. And then I just took some of that adhesive strip, cut it down, or the foam tape, cut it down, and layered it along the edge of the frame on top of the acrylic. So don't do like I did on one of my trial runs here, where I added the foam tape and then went, well, that wasn't very smart, because now you have to put your acrylic sheet down and you can't. So again, we're just kind of gonna eyeball this, because what I'm trying to do without this happening. Thank you. Kind of tricky because it's sticky. And you've got the shaker elements in there. Let's get this kind of straight so I'm working straight. Just, you think you're happy, kind of let it go. And let's get this moving around. Okay, this, I have a little bit too much in there, but it will move around. I needed some other pieces in there. Oh well, it will. So there's the shaker elements inside. There's your shaker element completed. It is tricky to do, Bobby, but it's okay. We accomplished it. Let's get this closed up because it's like glitter. I'll have it everywhere. So let's do some inking. And I should have inked the edges of this, but I didn't. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to ink them now. I could have rounded the corners of the cardstock, but I chose not to. And again, we're going to ink our green pieces. I'll give you some measurements for these. Just let me get the ink on them. And our background, this is a piece of 12 by 12, not 6 by 6 this time because it's got the bigger pattern. Okay, let's do that. So, of course, the pattern paper is 3 3/4 by 5, and it's going on to a piece that is 4 by 5 1/4. And then our little strip that's going underneath the shaker element, it measures 3/4 by 3 3/4. So let's glue everything to its respective piece of pattern paper, and then we'll assemble this card. And let's see if my glue wants to work. No, it's going to be a problem, so we'll just take our pin. Okay. Do this again. There we go. And we'll layer this down. So again, I'm only worried about top and bottom, not side to side. Something like so. There we go. And then the next piece, pattern paper. So when you look at your frames now, you'll look at them in a completely different light. You can make shaker cards out of them or shaker elements out of them. So I'm just centering it on its piece of pattern paper, like so. Collect any glue. And then I am just going to adhere this. I'm centering it closer to the bottom of the card, so maybe about 1 1/4 inches up from the bottom, give or take. And I'm not popping this element up. Actually, I didn't pop anything up on this card because of the shaker element, and I would still like it to fit in a regular envelope if at all possible. So making sure it's straight. A little bit. I'm kind of using my scoreboard as my, yep, I'm happy with that. And then the shaker element is going to go something like this. So I have a little bit hanging over the bottom of my little border strip. And again, I'm just going to double check. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Just put my adhesive on the back of it. So I used the art glitter glue again. And maybe in about 1/4 inch and up from the bottom, maybe 1/2 inch, give or take. Making sure it's nice and flat. And then I put some sequins up here on this particular card, but on this one, I might put some of the hearts, maybe a couple of the butterflies, these iridescent butterflies. So that was card 3. And like I say, all those frames, you never know what to do with them. Make them into shaker elements and then put them in your album or put them on the front of a card as an embellishment. And they look amazing. Now, card number 4 is this one. And card number 4 has a bunch of circles that I cut out. And we're doing some more stamping. So just let me get my pieces out. So I just had these dies, and I just cut out 3 circles that I like the size of. And again, this is your preference. So I cut the large circle at 3 1/4. My middle circle is 2 3/4, and my small circle is 2 3/8. And let's say you don't have circles. Do this design with squares. Whatever you've got, just look in your stash and use whatever you've got. Okay, so that was the size of the circles. And then my little pieces that I have, little tags, I guess is what I'm going to call them, that ran underneath. They are like a 1/2 inch wide. One is 4 1/4, and one is 4. And all I did is I just took my scissors and mitered it. Okay. You don't even have to if you didn't want to. I just wanted that for that detail. And then, of course, my card base is the 4 by 5 1/4. And then the pattern paper is 3 3/4 by 5. So let's ink some edges. Ink the edges of everything, even your little white piece. And I'm just using a gray ink. You could use a soft blue. You could use a sepia. You could use black. I just find black I get everywhere. And the ink I just had in my stash. So I'm just going around all of my edges. Now, the other thing I need to tell you is I cut my circle. I probably cut about 1/4 of it off. So I'm just going to bring my cutter in here. I am lining it up that the piece I'm going to cut off is about 3/4 of an inch, give or take. This is no rocket science here, just whatever kind of floated my boat. And now I'm going to ink those edges. And again, you could use one of the cut aparts and just cut a happy birthday circle out if you didn't want to do any stamping. I just like to stamp because then it's just yours. It's a little bit more on the unique side. You created it. Probably not going to see 2 the same unless you're making 2 more cards like I am right now. Okay, so let's set that ink aside. And now what I need is I need my VersaFine ink, because that's what I normally stamp sentiments in. And I'm just using a green ink that I had in my stash. So I'm going to get rid of my thank you. And like I say, I will wipe that later. So I'm just going to lay it on top, and that'll remind me to wipe it later. And the thank you stamp is right here. I am going to hopefully get this lined up correctly. Let me put my pieces up here. Let me get out my little gushy mat, as I call it, and put the pin back in my glue because we won't need this for a bit. And what I want to do is I want to kind of line up my sentiment. That's why I like it when I have some lines on a stamp or on a stamping block. And what I'm going to do is I am going to stamp the happy birthday right in the center of this white circle. So hopefully we can get it right on the first try. I typically take my stamp to my, I take my ink to my stamp. And I do an up and down motion. Now remember, this stamp I've used already, so it's seasoned as a term. If you first time using it, stamp it on something you're not going to want. Or stamp it on some stamp Versamarker on it first, because that'll make it tacky, and then it will hold the ink, the colored ink. So I'm just kind of lining this up. Think about there is going to make me happy. Hopefully I didn't move it. And then I'm just holding it for a couple of seconds. I'm letting that ink transfer to the paper. So it's stamping is not one of these things where you stamp and lift, stamp and lift. You've got to let the ink transfer to the paper, and different inks transfer differently. So this is a pigment ink, so it's a little faster in my opinion, but stamping is something you got to practice. It doesn't happen all at once. So I'm happy with that. Gonna put this stamp someplace where I can clean it when we're all done. Yes, I know I'm not cleaning it now because I need this. So there's a leaf or a branch, whatever we want to call it, that came with the stamp set. I'm taking this one and I'm going to put it on my block. And I have a second one. Now, I didn't use it when I did the original, but I'm thinking I might want to use this one this time. So I'm just going to put it on the other side, and then I'll know what I want to do. So I just chose a green ink, and I think I need, if I'm going to do what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to try this one. I'm just going to try it on a piece of paper to see if I'm going to like these two combinations together. So it's just a darker green. And these are just dye ink. So I just want to, so I often stamp off and then stamp onto my project. And I'm kind of going, no, that's going to be too dark for what I want. And I just don't think I've got this one. Let's see what this is going to be like. I don't know that, oh, yes, actually, I learned that from one of the members, Teresa. I was having trouble stamping something, and I had posted in a group, this is what's happening, and she said, try using some Versamark on it first. No, that's not singing to me either. So you know what? My idea is not going to happen. That is okay. That's why we do things like this sometimes. So what I was trying to do was sort of get a combination of colors going on, but I'm just, that's too blue and that's too brown for me. And that's okay, because we'll do it just like I did the first one. So let's get our happy birthday back in. That should have dried. At least we're going to hope it dried. And I am going to add my ink. I'm going to stamp it off. And then I'm going to stamp it on. And you know what I might do? Let's see what this looks like. So basically, I'm just kind of going around. Oh, I kind of like that. And then, so when I'm going to stamp darker, so I'm going to not stamp off on another piece of paper. I want this one to go in a little further. Yeah, and now this one I want to be darker. And I try and change my orientation of my stamp. And I like it when they stamp off, because it looks like then the paper is a piece of pattern paper. Okay. And hopefully, no. Let's just see here. I will be fine. Okay. So let's keep going. Stamp off. And stamp on. And then do it darker. Going the different way. Oh yeah, I like that. And I'm only using the one leaf. Changed my mind. Put that there. I'm noticing some of my pigment ink transferred. Well, let's put the lid on the dark sage before I ended up wearing it. I'm surprised I didn't. And we're just going to stamp the one in the middle because I just want it to be a little bit like so. And then I'm going to stamp it again, stamp off, and go like so. And then do it again. And do something like this. So there's what we kind of created. We kind of created our own stamping background, which I quite like it. I like how that turned out. So let's get rid of these ink pads before I wear them. I need that one. Just going to set this over here for now. Move all this away. I do have a stamping platform, Myrna, but in this case, I decided, you know what? We can do, I'll do a class where I do use the stamping platform because there's a learning curve to stamping, and you just can't give up. You know, I know that, you know, sometimes the ephemera is the easy way to go. And you know what? It's trial and error. You have no idea how many times I put something into my trash bin because it just hasn't worked out the way I thought it was going to work out. So we're just putting down our piece of pattern paper. And remember, this is the panel that you would glue to your card or adhere to your actual card base. So here's a card base. This is what I would be gluing to my card base. I'm just not doing it today because that just takes time. So you know what I would try, Myrna? I'm not sure if this is the problem, but maybe try and use some Versamark on your stamp and then see. And if you have a husband who's handy, get him to make you something like this because it gives equal pressure on the stamping platform. And like I say, if you Google something called Chucky Tool, you'll see all kinds of different ideas. So let's add some adhesive to the back of that largest circle that we cut about 3/4 of an inch off of one side. And what we're doing with this, I'm just going to turn my base and I'm just lining it up with the edge of the pattern paper and I am centering it left to right now, but it is actually the top and bottom. So there's our first layer. And I'm going to burnish. And then I'm going to take my little flag elements. I'm going to put one there. And I'm going to space this out just a little bit today. I'm going to put one there, like so. So I'm going to leave one in place. Somehow. Yes, that has happened to me too, Wendy. Now, with the stamping platform, make sure that you're using magnets to hold your paper in place when you're stamping. When you're stamping by hand, as I was in this case with a stamping block, I would never try and stamp it twice because there is no way I would be able to stamp in exactly the same spot. So I also like using the liquid glue when I'm doing cards like this because it gives you that second of wiggle room to make sure everything is straight. So I did that up about 1/4 of an inch from where I cut off. Hello, Miss Tammy. How are you today? We're talking stamping and we're making cards, but you already knew that. I forgot to ask you this morning, Tammy, did you get the McGill flower shaping tools into the store? Because I was using that to actually make these flowers. So this time I left a space between my two little strips of paper that I cut on the diagonal. And then my next circle is going to go on top of this, someplace like that, I think. And I'm going to use some foam tape. And I'm going to use the thinner foam tape this time. And I'm just going to, there you go. So if Tammy will have them in the store shortly. Tammy is getting ready for a retreat next week in Utah. And so I'm sure she's going crazy in a million different directions. And I think that's very nice of her to find time to be able to come in and say hello. And Tanya's going to that retreat. Unfortunately, I can't because I live in Canada and our border is still closed right now. So I'm just kind of going, where do I want this? Because I know that this circle is going to go like this. And I want to be able to see my little mitered pieces of cardstock. So I'm thinking something like that. So it's about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. So let's take the adhesive off the back. Some people like to put a little bit of art glitter glue on their foam tape. I tend not to. Something like there, I think is what I want. I'm a little bit closer than I was on the first one. Oh, I like that. That's exactly what I wanted. And then my sentiment that I stamped, and then we stamped leaves around it, is going to go like so. So for this one, I'm going to put my thinner adhesive on this side. So let's put some of that on. And like that. So I'm going to miss this retreat. I thought I was going to be able to get there back a couple months ago, but that's not happening. So I will be there in spirit. And yeah, that's how it goes. So we're going to do something like that, I think. Yes. And I don't think I need this big a piece. So we're going to pull this off because we can. And I've been putting little pieces on a little container I have over here. I never throw them away until I'm completely finished with my project. And it's going to go something like that. So let's remove the backing. And we only have 2 more cards to make. So it's going to go, let's get rid of that fuzzy. Something like so. And then again, you could actually put a flower here. That would look kind of cool. I wonder. See, I think it's too big for this application, this particular flower. Too bad, because that would look nice. I may go back and I may put a flower right there. Thanks, Donna. So there is card number 4 completed. And like I say, I may go back and put a flower there. I did put some bling up in the upper left-hand corner. But that's another idea for stamping. Now, this card. So this card, I didn't have another one of these cut aparts. Or if I did, I cut the back of it. So I went in a little bit different direction than this card is. But it's going to give us the same look. So what I did is there is a stamp on here that says, never underestimate the difference you make. I'm not going to stamp it because I had to create my own little 3x4. So I stamped this on a piece of Artisan. Yes, you can stamp on Artisan. I do it all the time. Just gives you a different look. This came off of the sticker sheet. I could have inked the edges of it. I chose not to. Then what I did for my layering is I used a piece of the solids and colors, or solids, and it's 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. So this piece is 3 by 4. You know what, Diane? That is a great thing to do. Look in your stash. Like if I had the time, I would be searching through my stash right now for a little flower that might match, or I'd be making a flower. But I want to keep this that we're not going to be going overboard on our time. So I'm going to ink the edges of this coral piece. And then I'll tell you the other measurements. I am not inking the edges on my 3x4 cut apart that I created with the stamped image and the sticker. These 3 pieces of layering pattern paper are 3/4 by 3 3/4 because this blue piece of solid paper is 3 3/4 by 5. And you know what? I should have cut out a piece of pattern paper, navy blue pattern paper. So give me 1 second because we're going to need that. And we'll just cut a piece quickly here. And I do keep my scraps specifically for card making. Just going to get this opened up. So we need a piece that's 4 by 5 1/4. Let's get this out of our way. All right. So let's ink our piece that's 3 3/4 by 5, I think is what I said, yes. So let's get that inked. So on my original card, I didn't use a piece of cardstock to layer everything on, but this one I think needs it. So that is where we are going to go with this one. And I'm just inking my edges. What is the smallest size scrap that I keep, Myrna? Depends on the day. Depends on how many scraps I have. Artisan, I pretty much keep everything because it is my go-to and it's not easy for me to get. So I do keep especially right now. So I like I say, I keep just about everything, and then I go back through and go, oh yeah, it's time to purge some scraps. So let's put our glue on the back of our light blue. So it's coral on one side and it's a light blue on the other side. And we're just going to layer it, centering it in the piece of cardstock that we cut for that purpose. And I do, when I'm making cards, love that 1/4 inch. Everything goes down by 1/4 inch. I hope that makes sense. So if my cut apart is 3 by 4, my piece of pattern or piece of cardstock or solid color behind it will be 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. So now I'm going to take my strips and I'm going to lay them like this. These are a little bit bigger than the ones I used on that card. They were about 1/2 inch. These guys are about 3/4 inch, I think is what I said. Yes, but we're still going to use them because it's just going to give us a slightly different look. So just kind of start. I'm going to be about 1/4 inch from the edge of the light blue solid piece. About 1/4 inch. I'm just eyeballing. Tammy can still hear me. She's going to go, she just said she was just eyeballing something. And any of you that come on Zoom or know me from different events know the story of the very first retreat that I went to with Tammy and how she had to cut a piece of paper because it was not the right size. Do this because I want the flower. Something like this. So that's not quite 1/4 inch. Yes, we were talking about that last night on Zoom, about retreats. Because, of course, anybody that gets to go to a retreat, they're very excited right now because, well, it's a big deal. And they are so much fun. If you can ever get to a live retreat or an in-person retreat, you've got to put that on your list of things you want to do. So there are my 3 layering pieces. And then we're going to add some adhesive to the back of this artisan that I stamped my sentiment on, and then put the sticker on. One day, Myrna, one day. And I'm just centering it, top to bottom, left to right. Just be careful with your glue doesn't decide to cause a huge mess. And I'm going to turn this one over, and I'll explain why I've turned it over to burnish, because I don't want to catch my sticker. I know, Tanya, I will. We just have to be patient. It will happen. Things will change. So I am going to bring this to the bottom. Probably about 1/8 inch is where I want this to be when I'm finished, because I am going to, maybe I'm doing this I'm doing this the opposite. So the bow on this one is going to go at the bottom. So I'm bringing this about 1/8 inch to the top, like so. And then my bow is going to be underneath this sticker that's the flower. And again, I'm going to pull out some of my foam tape. Just going to cut a piece off instead of struggling with it. And 2 more pieces. I'm going to cut another little one for the center, just because I don't like it when things sag in the center. And because this is a big element, like so. Okay. Why is Tammy fired, Blake? I don't understand. What is she fired from? Hi, Nicole. So again, like I said, we're just going to put this about 1/8 of an inch from the top and from the left-hand side. Lay it down. Yeah, I don't know what that means either, Tammy. And then I'm going to take the bow that I've already made. You guys have seen me make bows before. Put a little glue on the back of it. Oh, you know what, Heather? Oh, it's Heather. That is my fault because I forgot to tell Tammy to send a text. I didn't even think of that today. So that's my fault. You're going to have to fire me, not Tammy. So I'm just holding the bow in place so it can adhere. And like I did on this card, I would put a little bit of bling. I might put my bling down from the bottom. So the upper right-hand corner instead of this left-hand corner because I've got the bow at the bottom this time. And so there's 2 cards. So this one was made by a 3x4 cut apart. And this one we created by stamping and using a sticker. So similar look, but different because of course I use different color and I have a matting layer behind it too. So that was card number 5. I know you are. Now that I know who it is, I totally get the humor. All right, so the last card I created, I used a 3x4 cut apart. And for the one that we are going to make right now, I am using a different cut apart, but it's going to create a very similar card. So I just took some seam binding and I'm not even sure the name of this color, Tammy. It's kind of, it reminds me, it's not the light blue. It's that medium blue. It's the one you just sent me. So maybe Tammy will know the name of this color. But I thought it matched the blue and this word, positive vibes. That's why I decided to use it. Hi, Annette. So let's get going on this card. So it's a 3x4 cut apart. This time I'm just using another piece of pattern paper and I've cut that at 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. That's going to be the first layer. And then of course I'm using the navy blue for my base, which is 4 by 5 1/4. And the pattern paper on top of that is going to be 3 3/4 by 5. And then the pieces of seam binding, basically I just kind of cut about 8.5 inches. And then I cut a piece that was a little smaller. This is a bit of an overkill, but so you could cut a little bit less. So let's get going on this because it's our last card. Once I find my, put something away, how foolish of me. So just going to ink those edges. And like I said to you guys before, Tammy is sending me the dies that came with this particular set. And I plan to do another set of another set of cards incorporating those dies. So I don't quite know how they're going to look right now, but we will make more cards with this paper. So there's our inking. So let's put our layers together. The paper collection, Diane, is Salutations #1 by Echo Park. It's in Tammy's store. And today's cards I created using the 12x12 collection kit, and I still have lots left over. I'll show you the box I made a couple of weeks ago that I made out of that also. I used a 6x6 paper pad for some of my elements. I had the ephemera collection and I had the sticker sheet. And I still have lots left to make more cards. And I'll show you the stamps that Tammy sent me that I used. So she sent me this particular stamp set that's called You Make Me Happy, and it's the Salutations. And the other one is the Thanks stamp set. So those were the two stamp sets I used to create any stamping I did today. Hi, Rhonda. And we're going to adhere this element like so. So again, centering it side to side, top to bottom. Wow, we've done really well. This is not going to be 2 hours. I was a little concerned there for a while. I thought I was taking too long. All right, so now we want to add our seam binding, and we'll bring the original card back in. And I put the seam binding closer to the bottom. I didn't want it in the middle. You certainly could if you wanted to, but I decided I wanted my seam binding to the bottom. So I am going to get out some of my dry adhesive, flipping this over. And I'm going to just look at this again. So there's the bottom. So I'm putting one piece on this side and one piece on the other side. Burnish them. Pull the adhesive backing off. And don't throw them away because we're going to put it back on. And then I'm just going to well, thank you, but I probably would need to have to take a break. And I think if it took me 3 hours to do 6 cards, yes, I think Tammy would fire me. So I'm just kind of lining it up, going, am I happy with that? And I am. And I'm going to fold this back. Now, I'm not going to cut my excess off yet because I might have to move something around. I'm going to put my tape cover back over my dry adhesive tape because I don't want it sticking to my scoreboard. Something like that. And then this card is going to go kind of to the left, maybe 1/8 of an inch away. And I kind of just centered that on the center of this platform, piece of paper, whatever we want to call it. But I did pop this up, and we are going to use my thicker and remember, Tammy has in the store this foam tape. It's 1 millimeter thick, so it's the thinner tape, and it works great for popping things up, especially if you're going to be mailing them. And it's 108 feet. And I can tell you, if you make cards, you're going to want 108 feet. Tanya, thank you. I really liked how the cards came together. It was, I always like it when I get the project done and I'm going, oh, I really like this. Nope, we're going to take this one off. Well, let's see. Maybe we are going to leave it on. No, we are going to leave it on. Okay, so again, I'm just saying I centered it top to bottom, but I'm moving it further to the left. I want a bigger space on this side. So I'm about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch on the left-hand side away from the edge of the pattern paper. Let's get these off. Let's going to go like so, like so. Someplace there, I think is what I want. Yep. And then remember that little piece of seam binding? You know what? I think you do. If you've got that many, I think, Tammy, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can use them all at the same time. But this is lovely paper to turn some of those stamps in for, Heather. So all I did is I just pulled my seam binding underneath the seam binding that I wrapped around the card base. That's the word I was looking for earlier and couldn't find it. And then all I am doing with this piece of seam binding is I am taking it, tying, just tying it, bringing it together like so. And when I'm happy with my look, so I might want to fluff my seam binding, turn my seam binding, just to make it look the way I want it to look. I like that. And then all I did is I took my scissors and I went, how much of it do I want hanging over? And I literally just cut. It's a cheater bow, but it looks like $1,000,000 on the front of your card. And there was the last card created. Similar, but different. And I love the sentiment, positive vibes. So I'm going to pull back in the cards I made right now with you because I don't have room for all 10 of them. I wish I did. So this was what I created this card from. Maybe I'll do this. This was just a note. And we ended up with this one. Never underestimate the difference you make. This and this one are exactly the same. Now remember, I haven't put my bling on any of these cards because I thought I could do that off camera, and you guys all know how to do that. This was used with the frame that came in the ephemera. This was just a die I had in my stash, so that's what I used. And remember, this is the butterfly sequences that Tammy sells in the store. So there's that one. We're going to get too crowded here. There we go. These are almost the same. And we talked about making flowers and how easy they really are. And then the thank you is almost the very same. Very little changed in that one. And that was our 6th card we made today. So maybe we can do this. Let's do that and that. So those are the cards we made today. I hope you enjoyed them. And remember, you can start storing your cards in the box you've made to keep the cards in. It's down in the guide on the Scrapbooker site. That's where I'm going to be putting these live so that you can find them. Or you can find them over on my Facebook group, not my Facebook group, my YouTube channel, which is All Things Paper by Bonnie. And they'll be in that too. So I hope everybody has an amazing rest of the weekend. Happy Easter. And those that are getting to go to the retreat, go and have fun. Hopefully I'll get to say hi at some point to all of you. And that's it for me today, unless anybody's got a question. Have a great day. We will see you when I do the next live. Take care, everybody. Bye.